Hi, hello, welcome to Spell Day. We're covering a spell every single day of the year from the 5e PHB +4. Those +4 are homebrew spells. We're at +4 at the moment. You get a back in playlist to find them, and today's spell is Wish.
It's an amorphous blob.
You have wakened me from an endless slumber. I grant you one wish. Would you like endless bacon, but no more games? Or would you like games? Unlimited games and no games. Which would you want? You fucking idiot, take the bacon. At least tell me the answer. Just take the bacon. I failed genie school.
All right, hold on. So maybe he means, what would you rather have, bacon?
9th level Conjuration, casting time of 1 action, range of self, components verbal, duration instantaneous. Okay, here we go. Wish is the mightiest spell a mortal creature can cast. By simply speaking aloud, you can alter the very foundations of reality in accordance with your desires. The basic use of this spell is to duplicate any other spell of 8th level or lower. You don't need to meet any requirements in that spell, including costly components. The spell simply takes effect. Alternatively, you can create one of the following effects of your choice. You create one object of up to 25,000 gold pieces in value that isn't a magic item. The object can be no more than 300 feet in any dimension and appears in an occupied space you can see on the ground. That's not where I expected to find the answer of whether a structure counts as an object. You allow up to 20 creatures that you can see to regain all hit points, and you end all effects on them described in the Greater Restoration spell. You grant up to 10 creatures that you can see resistance to a damage type you choose. Grant up to 10 creatures you can see immunity to a single spell or other magical effect for 8 hours. For instance, you can make yourself and all your companions immune to a Lich's life drain attack. You undo a single recent event by forcing a re-roll or any roll made within the last round, including your last turn. Reality reshapes itself to accommodate the new result. For example, Wish spell could undo an opponent's successful save, foe's critical hit, or friend's failed save. You can force the reroll to be made with advantage or disadvantage, and you can choose whether to use the reroll or the original roll. You might be able to achieve something beyond the scope of the above example. State your wish to the DM as precisely as possible. The DM has great latitude in ruling what occurs in such an instance. The greater the wish, the greater likelihood that something goes wrong. The spell might simply fail, the effect you desire might only be partly achieved, or you might suffer some unforeseen consequence as a result of how you worded the wish. For example, wishing that a villain were dead might propel you forward in time to a period when that villain is no longer alive, effectively removing you from the game. Ooh. Similarly, wishing for a legendary magic item or artifact might instantly transport you to the presence of the item's current owner. The stress of casting this spell to produce any effect other than duplicating another spell weakens you. After enduring that stress, each time you cast a spell until you finish a long rest, you take 1d10 necrotic damage per level of that spell. This damage can't be reduced or prevented in any way. In addition, your strength drops to 3 if it isn't 3 or lower already for 2d4 days. For each of those days you spend resting and doing nothing more than light activity, your remaining recovery time decreases by 2 days. Finally, there is a 33% chance that you are unable to cast Wish ever again if you suffer this stress. Okay. Okay, so for that first effect of Wish, any spell balance, anything. Anything balancing a previous spell that was within its material component, within its time of casting, within its class limitations, gone. Congrats! You have access to every spell that you can cast on an action with no material cost and no class restrictions. Every day. But it's all the other thing as well. The other thing is just you don't need to know it. There's no training, there's nothing to it. You could have never even known the spell existed, or you're in a setting where it's a bit more restricted. You have Wish. Name the spell. And as people have been bringing up in some of the previous episodes and comments is that, yeah, some of these spells are just a Wish pick. Pick up Wish and then just cast it through that. Because either the action or the material component balances it from being broken or immediate pick, or being used in that time. Not saying that it's entirely bad on some of these spells. I mean, some of these spells are just nerfed to a point of not being used unless it's through this. But there's a point. Sometimes there is a point. Those nerfs are there. Any spells that were 8th level or lower that were limited or protected because they were tied to a specific class doesn't matter anymore. Any class that can pick up Wish can pick up those. Every day. the entire list. My question is now, can you upcast with this though? So can you cast any of these previous spells to the equivalent of 8th level? Like, let's say you cast like Through Wish an 8th level Fireball, for some reason. Can you do that? Or when you cast Fireball, is it always at 3rd level? Because if then a wizard can pick up that and then cast a healing spell up at 8th level, that changes things. Especially longer term resurrection spells that have a really expensive cost, or time limit, or revivify spells, or you know. In short, there are so many ramifications and implications based upon each separate spell underneath this. Basically of the entire list we've covered and more. List it down in the comments, the spells that you think work well as a wish option for the 8th level and lower. I know that some of you have already been doing that on some of the previous videos, but you know, on the wish video, people going to look up wish, you got the options right there in the comments. Okay, 25,000 gold piece object. The thing is the dimensions, 300 feet. That's a structure at that point, right? I'm not, right? That has to be a structure. 300 feet. Meaning weirdly, at least I'm reading it as, yeah, a structure counts as an object as well, if it's something of that size. But making material components just makes some solid object out of that gold. Or if you're going with the daisy chain or the sprue ruling, that we talked about briefly in Fabricate, well, you got your answer right there. Get all the components you need. Anything expensive, material, anything that's just not magic. Next feature, 20 creatures, all hit points in a range that you can see. This is a range of sight. Yes, the initial spell itself is self, but it's the fact that this latter effect is any creature you can see. Up to 20 of them, full health, and everything removed that Greater Restoration can remove. Just in one go. Have an entire party down, 20 different adventurers down. It's the fact you can get up to 20 people. Yes, it's a wish, and yes, it's a 9th level, but that's restoring a lot. Still not the biggest of these, but that's good. I mean, you could have someone with a telescope from a distance away, or a mage like flying around the battlefield and then cast this to raise the greatest heroes in this fight. Removing effects, curses, etc. alongside the Greater Restoration. Also, just to note, it's creatures, not players, meaning things like dragon health blocks and Tarrasque health blocks also go immediately back to full. So, you know, it's not just the adventurers that can get this. Just almost killing a group of 20 dragons you fought for some reason, and then, all back to full. Ah, you're so screwed. 10 creatures you can see. Again, a sight one. 10 creatures. Resistance to damage type you choose. Not removed, that's just added. That's just a permanent resistance. Oh, no. Permanent resistance. That's honestly pretty good. And again, another 10 creatures you can see, immune to a magical effect or spell. Gives example of what Lich's life drain, depending on how Dragon Breath is ruled, maybe even that. That's probably just a specific setting thing that I run. I'm not sure if that's the usual MO, or even debated. The Dragon Breath being magic in that sense. Anywho, outside of that, up to 10 creatures you can see. Here's the thing. Immunity doesn't necessarily mean it has to be against something harmful. Can you make an enemy creature that you can see immune to a beneficial magic item or spell? Congrats, enemy leadership, you are now immune to healing spells or cure wounds. I guess you have to pick a specific effect, but vampiric regeneration. It's a bit niche, or enemies that have innate teleportation, some kind of immediate blast, things that are an effect they're placing on themselves or are already under, a lot of layer action type things. Under this wording, it doesn't say ally, there's not a save tied to it, it just says immunity to a spell or magical effect. It just doesn't affect the target anymore. That means you can also make enemies just not affected by good buffs anymore. That really sucks. That really sucks. No range, sight as well. At least this one's limited for 8 hours. Forcing a reroll. I find this one funny. Because it's not up to the last round, it's within the last round. And especially at this tier of gameplay, that might be a lot of time physically at the table. I'm trying to think of who would go back to change one specific roll that far back. I mean, it's good that they have the option there, but this is lucky that you can do retroactive. Yes, I I banned the lucky feat, along with a lot of other people, but it's kind of that. I get to replace a roll with advantage. In this one, you get to pick the original roll. If the roll you actually got you didn't like, you can give it advantage, disadvantage, etc. I do like, however, it doesn't guarantee that they failed. It's not like a portent dice where you can say, well, they actually failed this. Or we actually passed this. It's still left up to chance. So that's something at least. Now for the big one. The wish. The actual just wish. Not the spontaneous create a random effect or really powerful effect or duplicate another spell. It is the wish. Saying out loud you wish something for good or bad. Potentially ill. And like some of the other spells that we've covered, especially the higher levels ones, when it just has a DM in there, it usually just says up to DM discretion. Wait, no, this side is up to DM discretion. So really the balance of this changes wildly depending on your DM, on what they allow, what they'll allow you to change, what effects are too great versus too small, or not too small, but are small enough to just easily pass. And what are the repercussions? Does it just fail, or is there a monkey's paw? Like, you know, going for like, I wish all goblins were gnomes. That's a big change that probably will just fail. Or wish that like, oh, all goblins know gnomish. Okay, a bit lighter, but it's like, okay, why do they know gnomish? Oh, goblins have infiltrated every gnomish city as spies. Or some other kind of wish, even to like something super mundane, like, oh, I wish I could use the title of +3 spells. Oh, that can't be good. Monkey's Paw, retroactive effect. Now, to add, in the few times this has come up in my games, I love the Monkey's Paw. And some of those are quite drastic and such a gamble, not even for the fact that I forgot about a good chunk of the secondary precautions or negatives to casting it this way, or some of the other ways. But man, being able to be like, oh, I want this villain to be dead. Well, congrats! You are forward in time to when that villain's dead. You're out of the campaign. Character's gone. Hope you didn't get too attached. Oh, with this, you could even have a command and conquer scenario. A red alert. He blew up Einstein. Anywho, have massive repercussions. You could even have an entire campaign based around someone learned or cast Wish, and then, whoops, reality was entirely screwed over. Which is one of my reasons for hating this. Alright, last thing to cover. The stress. The stress of casting it in those manners outside of just duplicating a spell. That part I had entirely forgotten. But basically, being entirely out until a long rest of, oh yeah, I can't cast anything else because I'm immediately going to take D12 necrotic damage equal to the level. Ooh, in the middle of a boss fight, that's going to hurt if you used one of those other features. And then the strength being reduced, which is more flavorful to show that you're weak, but outside of that, it's not actually doing too much. And the damage from any spell, mind you, up until long rest, depending on how you actually use that. Basically, if you use the duplicate inside of combat, it's fine. Meanwhile, if you use any of the other features, do it outside of combat on a resting day. You get this back on a long rest. Okay, but the other part of it, that's supposed to stop you from casting this instantly on a short rest, or, I mean, a long rest. The 33% chance of instantly forgetting the spell. Well, not forgetting, but unable to cast it, which is supposed to be its balance. Okay. All right. No. No pantheon, deity, or otherwise would let this spell exist. In all those various myths, or not myths even to this extent, but in all the various lores of the Forgotten Realms and some other settings of like 10th, 11th, higher level spells that eventually can reach godhood to some extent, where there is no divide once you head up that high. Wish should be up there. It should be, or even higher, or limited to specific creatures. Archdevils, greater devils, genies, you know, specific things or entities that are bound outside of the material realm, not an individual mortal soul that has decided, oh, I'm gonna book read for 50 years and be able to warp reality. You are already doing that with a bunch of other spells. There's supposed to be costs, time, investment, dangers. None of that! Yes, there's the necrotic damage. That's not enough. Yes, there's the strength being reduced to 30%, or 3. That's not enough. And then there's a 33% chance of forgetting it. Oh, boo-hoo. You should be having celestials coming after you for casting this. You warped reality. Even if it's not the thing of just directly calling out for a wish somewhere, which will have massive backlashes in any case, and if you're a DM running this and allowing your players to do it, yes, have a monkey's paw. Have a monkey's paw. That's for the specific question scenario of it, but when it comes... The duplicating as well, that is already such a crazy feat of, oh, congrats, I'm a wizard. It doesn't matter that you had a deity give you all these special gifts and that no other class can replicate it, because I can, because I have wish, because I practically have the powers of the god to be able to grant that to you, or be able to do it myself. Okay? Gritty realism or something where long rests aren't that common, I can see the necrotic damage being a bit heftier. But in base 5e where long rest is just a good night's sleep, no. No. It does stop you from using it in the middle of combat for any of those other effects, which is probably when it's the best. But, come on! Not to mention, catnap exists. Meaning you could just, if you're doing cast this ahead of time before combat, if you need to, catnap. Then you're done. Congrats, you had your long rest. You don't need to worry about necrotic damage anymore. Okay. So, the way I run it, congrats, this is off of every spell list. Creatures can still get it. Planar entities can still get it. They have their own limitations and restrictions, you know, the whole Genie Wish kind of scenario where strings attached. Players, no. Mortal creatures, no. Even a lich, no. Again, if you get up to those points of you're basically becoming a god, like Vecna or something, of those like mythical and like Forgotten Realms setting, 10th, 11th, whatever, and you're on your path to ascension, sure, because that is basically godlike power. The 33% of just forgetting it, no, there should be massive repercussions for the spell. If you have other spells that say like, oh congrats, you got the attention of something, or you pissed something off, this should be bad. This should be really bad. Not to mention it falls into the pit of a lot of other issues of any other spell that just has a super vague effect. What are its limitations? That's up to the player and DM, or namely the DM in this case, to finally put a stop to some of it. But the fact is, the Wish spell is an open door. It's the congrats. It's the capstone to the spellcasters that can pick it up, taking the place of other 9th level spells. It shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be listed as a single spell. This is some weird effect. This is for something for a creature to have, a god to do, something to happen in the background, something in the DM's hands, not in a player's hands. No. So, my campaign. Very few limited resources for mortal creatures to be able to cast Wish, normally tied to artifacts of some kind or getting it from said creatures, and even then those creatures have their own restrictions. I just take it out of spell lists. Similar to Lucky, it's banned unless it's in a specific item you're finding. Because there's also the Realm, leaving up the 33% chance possibility. Because it's a percentage chance, and it's a dice game. There is always a possibility you never roll under that 33%, and you just keep going. Every day altering reality just a little bit more. Now we're on a campaign where some previous adventuring party or mage broke the world when they figured this out. Heck, maybe that's why magic's everywhere, various creatures are around, they just screwed up over and over and over again, undeath, an entire monkey's paw. Aberrations, brief flecks of the past realms. Because world building wise, no mortal entity should be able to cast this, because if they do, your world's going to be broken. Your world's going to be scarred. Maybe it already is. Maybe all these random monsters around, all magical creatures, different types of, Think of all the different monkey paws that could have spawned the generic fantasy setting. Or the Swords Coast, or whatever your current campaign is in. What certain effects and realities of the setting were just because someone screwed up? The idea of magic being pushed to its limit and leaving some kind of strain on the material realm. This is the spell that is that. It is just breaking. This is not adding. This is not working within the realms of that initial system. This is saying, this is a fact. I don't care what the rest of magic's rules listen to, what the rest of this material world's rules listen to, what the rest of this universe's rules listen to. This has occurred. And even in some settings, gods can't even do that. The final world building notes. The repercussions are world-defining, or world-ending, or world-creating. In its current state, however, 10 out of 10. It's Wish. It's the auto 9th level pick. Nerfs, or doesn't nerf, but buffs every other spell that had the limit of some kind of casting time or material component. And class restriction. And even then just allows you to alter entire setting. Or reality. Or just... Depending on how it's Monkey's Pod, if we're going with the benefit of the doubt and trying to just rate its total possibility, it is immense. You control the setting now. You have taken it from the DM. If the DM doesn't put their foot down. 10 out of 10.